Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, if you do enjoy the video that you came here to watch, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really does help my audience grow. It really does help this channel grow. It means more than you realize. So go ahead, hit that little red button. Also, remember, full episodes of the Aaron Torres podcast, wherever you download your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. Now, here is the video that you came here for.
Play where I think we all thought, oh, Tennessee's in trouble. They're screwed. Tied 42-42. Alabama has just scored to tie the game. Tennessee backed up against its own goal line, fumbles, recovered by Alabama. They're up 49-42. And we think, oh, it's over. Oh, those Vegas sharps that had this game as Alabama winning by a touchdown, they're exactly right. Instead, to its credit, Tennessee rallies. They score. They hold Alabama to a field goal attempt. Now, we're going to talk about the Alabama play calling in a minute because it was not very good. But they hold Alabama to a field goal attempt. Alabama missed the field goal. To its credit, Tennessee gets the ball back. They're aggressive. They don't play for overtime in the final seconds. They get in field goal range. Kick goes up. Kick is wobbly. Kick is good. And as I just said, Tennessee beats Alabama for the first time since 2006. I know I've said it a few times, but it is inconceivable. And so in the bigger picture, this is what I want to do now, because a lot of times when I lead a show with a big win, a big loss, a big this, a big that, one thing that I do is I generally talk about the ramifications in the moment and in the bigger picture for that specific team, right? Well, this result happened, and this means that this team is now a playoff contender, that this team is now out of the playoff picture, that this team needs to fire its coach, that this team should hire this guy. I don't want to do that with Tennessee because I do think those are important conversations to have about Tennessee. What this win means for the SEC East race, for the SEC title race, for the playoff picture. And those are conversations that we can have over these next 2 to 3 weeks as they have a big game against Kentucky in a few weeks. Kentucky will be coming off a bye. That can be a spoiler type game for Kentucky. And of course, if Tennessee survives that, then it's kind of a winner. Basically, it's essentially a winner take all SEC game, SEC East game against Georgia the week after that. So we have time to talk about all that, but that's not what I want to talk about today, because I don't think that's what any Tennessee fan is talking about today. And I don't claim to be a Tennessee fan, but I am a fan of college football. I am a fan of college sports. I've been following this stuff religiously for close to 25 years. And I think what this conversation today, it's not about the big picture. What does it all mean for this season and for the next 10 years of Tennessee football? I think for Tennessee fans today, even Monday, even as you listen, we're talking a full, 36 hours after the game went final at about 7:30 Eastern on Saturday. I think for Tennessee fans, it really is about enjoying this moment, a moment that I think even non-Tennessee fans, we all wondered if this would ever come. And the crazy thing about Tennessee, so I know I've said it 3-4 times now, first time since 2006 that Tennessee has beaten Alabama. And I think for the outsiders or for our younger listeners, I think it's easy to forget how good Tennessee had it going. And frankly, the fact that this was a really, really good program, really in the context of college football, relatively recently. I mean, even the year that this streak started, the 2007 loss to Alabama, Tennessee won the SEC East and played LSU in the SEC title game to obviously go to a big bowl game, right? LSU ends up winning. They end up winning the national championship. But Tennessee played LSU tougher in the SEC title game than Ohio State did in the national championship game. And so we're talking about 2007. And I know for our 18, 19, 21, 24, 26-year-old listeners, that feels like a lifetime ago. But it really wasn't. And so to fully understand why this win was so big, it's not just the 15-game losing streak for the University of Tennessee against Alabama. It's really about everything that has happened since. Think about, just take a second to think about everything that has happened for Tennessee football since the day that this streak started, okay? Phil Fulmer forced out. And I'm not going to go through a huge history lesson, but I think you need to fully understand why this win was the magnitude of this win. Phil Fulmer forced out. You bring in this you bring in this hot shot young head coach in Lane Kiffin straight off the NFL. First year actually goes well. I think it's easy to forget with Lane Kiffin. First year, he beats Georgia. He beats South Carolina when South Carolina was good. He plays Alabama down to the wire. He plays Florida tough. And then he leaves in the cloak of darkness to go to USC. You bring in Derek Dooley, that doesn't work. You bring in Butch Jones, there's like a half a second where things look like they're going in the right direction, and then they immediately bottom out. You have the Greg Schiano situation, which lasted a day and a half. You have obviously Jeremy Pruitt coming in. The Jeremy Pruitt situation's a disaster. You have Jeremy Pruitt being fired, NCAA sanctions, which we've actually talked about, 3-7 season. And what I would say is you think about all of those things, starting with Phil Fulmer being let go, Lane Kiffin, NCAA sanctions, Jeremy Pruitt, whatever. And what I can say and where I sympathize with Tennessee fans, I know there's a lot of, 13 other fan bases in the SEC that probably don't like Tennessee. But why I sympathize with Tennessee is because when you're at the top, when you win a title in 98, when you're playing for an SEC title as recently as 2007, and you go sideways, I think there's always a concern that it'll never come back. And I'll use an example from my personal life. Okay. I'm a UConn fan, right? Grew up in Connecticut, went to UConn. And why I bring it up, I've been blessed, right? I mean, I hate to brag, I've seen 4 national championships in basketball in my lifetime. But after the 2014 season, it cratered out under Kevin Ollie, 3 straight losing seasons for UConn men's basketball. And you sit there as a fan and wonder, is it ever going to happen again? What if it never gets back to the way it was? And I think that's where Tennessee fans have gotten over the last couple of years. We got rid of Phil Fulmer. We thought we had the guy in Kiffin. It didn't work out. And it's just been one after another, the wrong hire. And so to go through all of that and then to have a moment like you did on Saturday, you can understand why there were Tennessee fans crying on the field. Why my guy Jackson, who runs the Torres on Vols account, was smoking a cigar with his dad in the backyard after that game. For the first time in his life, he was smoking a cigar with his dad. It was because of that moment. It was because of the 15 years of frustration. And I will take it a step further from the Tennessee perspective. I do think that it's not just that you beat Alabama. I think you had to beat out for this to feel the way that it did. I think you had to beat Alabama under these exact circumstances. And what do I mean by that? Listen, when you beat a rival of yours, it always feels good, right? Doesn't matter if football, baseball, basketball, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, doesn't matter. But for everything, for all of the demons, for everything to be lifted off your shoulders, it had to happen like this. It couldn't be in a year where Tennessee was 4-3 and they just, everything broke right. Almost like what happened with A&M last year with Alabama. Like A&M beats Alabama last year and it feels good in that moment, but they weren't able to capitalize and build off the momentum of beating Alabama. Now we'll see if Tennessee does, but I do think that matters. The fact that Alabama is really good, right? I mean, if you're a Tennessee fan and you're 6-0 this year, but Alabama is 4-2, and for the first time under Saban, there's major cracks, then you're starting to sit there and say, it's great, we're happy, but it doesn't feel the same. I'll take it a step further. If Bryce Young had not only not played, but if he had played and it was clear that he wasn't 100%, I think it feels different if you're a Tennessee fan. Instead, Bryce Young, I would argue, played the best game of his career. That guy was unbelievable. And we're going to talk about it from the Bama perspective momentarily. But Bryce Young plays. He plays like a Heisman Trophy winner. He takes a million big shots, and we'll talk about the refs and all that stuff later. Stop with the refs, Alabama fans. But Bryce Young is a warrior. Bryce Young plays the game of his life. Alabama has the lead 49-42, and you rally and you win and you beat Alabama under Nick Saban when they're undefeated and potentially now have put their season on the brink. But more importantly for you, it's like, oh my God, we not only beat Alabama, they came to our house under our circumstances. We played our style and we were just on this day better. So congratulations to Tennessee fans. Listen, I don't think I know, again, I understand people in the SEC don't like Tennessee. I get that. But if you are just a fan of anybody, we've all had that moment as a fan where it all comes together and it all feels so good. For Kentucky fans, I think it was probably that John Wall game at Madison Square Garden against my UConn Huskies. For my UConn Huskies, we've had a few of them. Maybe the Kemba year was the year where that stands out the most. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head. But where everything that's gone wrong for so long, it feels so good. And it feels like, I'm just telling you, Be happy for Tennessee fans. Let them have their moment, unless you're an Alabama fan when you're frustrated, which we're going to get to Bama in a second. But what I would say is we also, from the Tennessee perspective, we do have to talk about it from the 30,000-foot view. We do have to talk about it for what it means because, again, this win was special. It was great. But what's great about it for Tennessee fans is you get the 2-3 day hangover from beating Alabama, but then you can look ahead to what the rest of the season provides, right? And it would be so different if this was a game where, again, you were 4-3 and Alabama was 6-0, and that is your season, and there's no real way to build off it. But now, in theory, it's just the beginning. Now, from the Tennessee perspective, what Saturday confirmed is a couple things. One, the quadruple H, Hendon Hooker Heisman hype is freaking real, baby. Okay. Hendon Hooker Heisman hype is real. This guy is your Heisman leader. I don't know exactly what the Betfred Sportsbook says if he is the favorite right now. It's no disrespect to CJ Stroud. It's no disrespect, by the way, to Bryce Young, who was unbelievable. But Hendon Hooker should be your leader. 70% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 1 interception this year, and plays his best in the biggest moments. By the way, Tennessee has 4 wins against teams that were ranked in the top 25 when they played them: at Pitt, Florida at home, at LSU, at Bama. And so I'm just sitting here telling you, that guy should be your Heisman favorite right now. And what a great story that guy is, right? And that's kind of the story of Tennessee, right? Beat up, beat down, left for dead. Hendon Hooker couldn't get the starting job at Virginia Tech for some strange reason. Somebody's going to have to explain that bad boy to me. Comes to Tennessee, isn't given the starting job there, gets it anyway, earns it, and now he's your Heisman favorite. I think he's going to end up as a first-round pick in the NFL draft. You heard it here on October 16th on the Aaron Torres podcast. I really feel like he's going to be a first-round pick. And also, most importantly, he's got his team in position to win a championship. The Josh Heupel stuff, listen, we've talked about it. I don't need to go through it 2, 3, 4 times. I've talked about it a lot. But what this guy's done is so unbelievable. And his story, too, and this is something I haven't talked about, probably needs to be talked about a little bit more. Remember, this was the guy that was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma before Lincoln Riley was hired. And he got let go by his alma mater because he wasn't believed to be good enough. Has to go to Utah State, has to go to Missouri, gets a job at UCF, and now he's at Tennessee. Inherits a program that lost 30-plus players to the transfer portal, that was coming off a 3-7 season. And in what are we talking about now? He got hired in January of 2021. It's October of 2022. What is that? I'm not great at math. That's 17 months, something like that. Tennessee's number 3 in the country as I record here. Unbelievable. And finally, what I would say from the Tennessee perspective is, I don't think today is about talking playoff and SEC title and this and that. What I do think, though, and what I truly do believe is it is a conversation that we're going to have here on the Aaron Torres pod over the next few weeks, because it's all on the table for Tennessee. They play UT Martin this week. They still have Kentucky at home. And then, of course, the big one against Georgia. And that's going to tell us everything we need to know. Tennessee right now is almost in the perfect position. They're 6-0. I would argue most of the tougher games on the schedule are behind them. Now, Kentucky's still tough. Kentucky just beat the brakes off of Mississippi State with Will Levis back in the lineup on Saturday. That isn't going to be easy. Georgia's obviously going to be really tough, but everything's still ahead for you. You can play for an SEC East title if you beat Georgia and Kentucky. I'd take it a step further. If you beat Georgia, or if you lose to Georgia, but you beat everybody else, and you're sitting at 11-1 to end the season with wins over Bama, Kentucky, this, that, you're going to have a pretty compelling case for a playoff berth as an at-large. And oh, by the way, even if you don't make the playoff, and I know that's the goal, and I know national championship is the goal. I mean, if I told you Tennessee fans 11-1 in Sugar Bowl in this year, you would have been over the moon. So listen, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but for Tennessee, it was an incredible night and an incredible moment. I'm happy for the fans. It was just everything that was right about college football. Fans on the field, cigars being smoked by players, by coaches, by the AD, by parents with sons. It was just everything. It was everything that was great about college football. Congratulations to Tennessee. You are the best story in college football. You have the National Coach of the Year right now. You have the Heisman Trophy winner right now. And oh, by the way, you have a team that's good enough to make a playoff berth and maybe win a national championship.